Nice.
So good to see you, Scott.
Good to see you. It's been a while.
Wow, it's been a while, I know, and you have been adventuring, haven't you?
Yeah, all over Europe and Ukraine. I'm going to India in a week, which will be exciting. And just having a good time, enjoying
Amazing.
the freedom of travel while we can. Hopefully, we are allowed to for a while. But I think about you guys all the time, and I'm so happy that you are able to continue with Subhraag, like while I'm doing all these things. Uh, Meanwhile, like the world continues to unfold in the most bizarre, interesting, exciting, and scary, everything all at once type of place, right?
Well, I mean, it's actually I've gotten to the point of feeling like it's beautiful to watch this unfolding because I'm on the other side. I'm past fear at this point, and I think you are too.
Yeah.
Where we see others, really terrified of what's happening. I mean, the amount of fear in this state around this silly storm that we have. That's why I've got the Northern Lights background. I thought it was kind of fun because
Yeah, it's cool.
it is wild. I mean, people lose their minds. The grocery stores were totally empty, and the shelves were completely empty.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
there were aisles where there wasn't a single thing on either side.
Wow.
It's,
Wow.
I've ever seen it like that before. And I think that's probably half the country. So,
Yeah.
people are scared and they forget that all we got to do is choose love.
Yeah, I'm not immune to that. I definitely feel the fear bubble up. I look at the trajectory of the ship, if as it were, right? If we're on an arc or something, and I see it heading towards a disaster. And I've talked to you about where I boil it down to the money, because where is it being
Mhm.
spent? How's it being spent? And who's in control of like the levers of um, money is power in a lot of ways in this current game we're playing. And so these people who are in control, they print it uncontrollably. That's kind of like a that's like ironic, but they are uncontrolled in their control of this power, and they or unchecked is a better word, and they just go insane. And meanwhile, so what's happening is the dollar's inflating, gold is skyrocketing, Bitcoin's doing well. It's not as amazing as it was when it peaked, but it's still great when you think of it in terms of the dollar. You look at this I'm discussing because it's kind of like a measurement stick for me as far as like the chaos that's kind of like unfolding, and the trajectory that we're on. It's measurable in this money system that they use to enable themselves to do this stuff. It's going, you're right, choose love over fear. It's going in the direction of ultimate love. There's no question, because everything. What does Martin Luther King say? The arc of justice is long, but it bends towards justice, something like that. I don't think he uses
Mm.
justice twice. But so you're totally correct in that you must choose love and you must see that. However, I get caught up thinking about the suffering that's going to happen along the way.
I know.
That doesn't feel so where I'm getting more obsessive about lately to try to alleviate those bubbles of fear is I'm leaning into this idea of even the things that seem outside of my control and like the big stuff, those things I think are actually in my control or in my power. I'm able to search within, as bizarre as it sounds, what are my connections to Jeffrey Epstein and evil banks and evil governments? Where am I inside allowing that to like be a flower outside? And that's like this really bizarre, deep work where when I tune into it more, I start to feel the love again and the calmness in that it's the same stuff as when I myself was doing things, if I did things in the past that I didn't like, and I would be like, well, that doesn't seem like me, so it's not me, but it's harder to deny because it is the physical me doing it. So now I'm looking outside of the world and being like, well, that's not me. Trump is not me. Jeffrey Epstein's not me. But I kind of think when you go real deep and you realize we're all one, this is all a reflection, this really is, it comes down to you. I think that it's in us. I think that there's these little seeds of corruption. It could even be parts of you that reject stuff so much that you want to watch it collapse and you almost get a glee out of watching it collapse. So it could be like, I don't want I don't want suffering, right? So if because there are parts of me, sorry, I'm going on a whole tangent here. Nice to see you, Subhraag. There are parts of me, and I'm just working this out as I talk it out loud, but that do feel good about the fact that a lot of these systems are collapsing. Like I do feel good about that because they are untruthful and they are scarcity based and fear based. At the same time, I don't want it to create what it's creating, which is these monsters clinging on to power and doing awful things and creating say unnecessary suffering. Because the path to healing all of this doesn't necessarily need to involve suffering.
No.
Just like your own journey in your own life towards getting over an addiction, getting over bad behaviors, doesn't necessarily have to involve suffering. Pain, like the whole thing with Buddha, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Pain and suffering are separate. Like pain is this, oh my God, it hurts when I lift weights. But it's not, I'm not suffering because I chose to lift weights and I know the reward afterwards. So the suffering would be, oh my God, it hurts when I lift weights and I don't want to do this and I don't even see the point in it, right? You don't find the meaning in it. So we could, the same way that you can find uh, no suffering in the pain of working out, we also could find no suffering in the pain of getting out of this mess that we're in. That's all I have to say. Hi, Sabrag. Go ahead.
Great to see you. It's been a while.
Yeah.
No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, suffering, though, I think there's another layer to this because suffering requires resistance. That's not to say that, there aren't victims out there suffering immense atrocities, because there are every day at the hand of these controllers that we speak about quite consistently when we get together, because we're all tuned in to what they're doing and their nefarious plan and their agenda. And right now we're in the thick of it because we know they're all together in Davos, sort of plotting against humanity. And there's so many people who are starting to see that. But I do think there's a layer of resistance with suffering. And what you're talking about, there's choice, where sometimes we inflict pain in our lives, but we always have choice. We don't have to be in places where there are wars happening, right? We don't have to put ourselves in situations where we are at the hand of their control. But it's hard because, just we talk about finances. I'm so heavily invested in the stock market. I have put myself in their hands to be a pawn, right? But I made that choice. I might have made that choice long ago, but I made that choice. Now, if I lost everything, would I suffer? I'm well aware of the risks I'm taking and I've diversified, but I think suffering, I don't think I would suffer even if we lost everything. Do you know what I mean? Like we have education and awareness around what we could be losing. A lot of people don't. And I think that's the sad part of where we are now, is how many are still cloaked under this veil of the illusion that we live in.
And stuck being part of the fuel of the darkness that they don't want to be, but they don't understand how not to be. So you participate in this, like spiritually, like we just discussed, but also in the real world. So a lot of really nice people are working for pharmaceutical companies that are poisoning the world. A lot of really nice people are working for Monsanto that's poisoning our food. And they're part of this poison because they don't know what the heck, like, what am I supposed to do? We were programmed to get A's in school. I'm talking about Americans. Get A's in school, work hard, and make a lot of money so that you can support a family. And a lot of people did that. And people who work at the Fortune 500 companies are doing that. And they are kind of unconsciously marching towards the giant disaster that we're seeing unfolds very slowly, but it's happening, and in some ways fast, but in a lot of ways slow. Uh, and they don't see a way out. A lot of people just don't see a way out. So
And the system
like
is created for them not to see a way out, right?
exactly. And so like a lot of people, I just want to say this part. I think I may have mentioned this before, but back in the day when technology was first coming out, late 80s, 90s, and talking about computers, things like that, people were excited about the cool things that they did and how they can help their lives out. There was some fear, but not like gripping fear, because they were clearly adding. Like they were like, you can play games, you can do a lot of calculations way quicker than you could in the past. And when Steve Jobs used to come out on stage and show off these tools, people would get really excited. There'd be like a lot of like love attached to it. Wow, I could put 1,000 songs on this. That was like his first big iPod thing. You could have 1,000 songs in your pocket. What a fun concept. How cool is that? So that now is so much darker when they're coming out and announcing these new AI robots are gonna blah 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 blah. These do it's so dystopian and scary and like not. I don't know about you guys, but anyone I speak to, and I speak to a lot of different age range people, none of them are like awesome. It's not the feeling of 1,000 songs in my pocket anymore. It's like this scary, like, what the F is this future that we're all marching towards? And then we're told, well, if we don't do it, China's going to do it and they're going to kill you, So like, okay, I guess this is all right. But what is it? Like, are you excited about any of these products coming out? I mean, like, maybe some of them are cool. Like, there's some fun little side things that they do, but like, overall, people are like, why? Like, we don't want if you look at the comments, it's so funny because I used to follow AI accounts where there was some excitement at the way beginning because it was this fascinating thing. And you would have comments of like, yeah, this is awesome. And now it's kind of like, we don't want this. Like, why have it do my laundry and like leave it at that. Don't make it do, all of my art, and stuff like that, or recreate all these songs that start to sound a little creepy and empty. But again, Hilda, I'm speaking from like my bubbles of fear. And if we come back to your love, I know all of this is leading towards that. So I know like did you guys see there was like some dictionary that labeled the word of the year last year as slop? Like that's just the word that describes 2025. And I think it's really well done because that's like what has inundated the internet. It's just a bunch of AI slop. Just this like, look at this, look at that, and blah. There's like no thought. They're just crunching out these videos and seeing which ones are sticking. And it's just like throwing slop, seeing which ones stick. And people are like, back to the love thing, people are seeing through it. They're like, oh, this is gross. And what used to be excitement a little bit about the AI stuff at the way beginning has now turned into like, this just looks like crap and it feels empty and it just feels hollow. And why am I supposed to be excited about this? Yeah.
But that is, if you look at it this way, imagine if we didn't create any of this. We just tapped into it because our consciousness evolved to a point where we are ready for the next step. And what if we require this for the next step? And that's where I think there's no turning back. We have to accept to some extent, right? Like we've all accepted that the iPod mini, now, we've got Spotify and we don't need these little devices anymore. Now we have one big one that does everything. And I consent, are you kidding? Everything's on there. Every bank account, PayPal, Venmo, you name it, right? And so they've got us all consenting on some level. And at what point do you say, well, I can consent to this, but not that? Because we all agreed. It's been a collective agreement And so at this point, we have to choose how to evolve with it. And these are the big conversations that people need to start having. Like with our kids, we're talking all the time about, college is really a moot point, in my opinion. We are just looking at what kind of jobs can AI not take over? What can our kids do that's purposeful, that can have an impact on the world to some degree in a beneficent way, that's not making them a slave to the matrix, tethered to the matrix, or at risk of job loss because of AI or robots. And,
And that's the love that you're discussing, because that's the
exactly.
piece that's going to boil it all back. Like this is all amounting to a bunch of slop that nobody wants.
Right.
And that will then bring people like your children into this like new generation that are like, yeah, we tried that. We didn't like it. We want this instead. And we want to have our feet on the ground and we want to dig into the dirt because sure, AI is doing all these other cool, fancy things. Cool. Did we figure out how to make the sun turn leaves into food? Like we didn't figure that out. That was like a God thing. And I like connecting to that a little more. I'm a little more impressed with that. So I think you're totally right. I love that you just mentioned the consenting thing because I was thinking about this the other day. When you think about the spirit realm and you think about the devil and you think about demons, they aren't allowed in your house. They're not allowed even in your presence without consent. And that's why the devil like announces his plans. And I I can't believe how easily we all slipped into this agree clicking. Like new privacies, new terms of service, new blah blah blah. Don't you want that like tasty treat, which is your Spotify streaming songs and your free way to connect to all your friends on Instagram and show off? Don't you want that sweet treat? Okay, consent. And it's literally like signing a contract with the devil. It's like, did you even read it? I mean, how many times were we shown in movies and things when we were kids that like stereotypical devil being like, just sign right here, and like you'll get it. We've been doing that. We've been doing that so unconsciously because like, what's the big deal? Sure, click, click, click. And I am obviously 100% guilty of it, and I've been doing it, and now I don't know what to do about it because I do like my Instagram and things, but it is really good to think about and get more conscious about because it is they can't do this to us without our consent. Because that's like I think that's really the laws of the universe. These demons, these things, they can't seep in without you inviting them, without you opening the door. And when you click agree, as silly as that sounds, though, as the world gets so dark now, maybe it's not as silly. Like, check out what you're agreeing to. These people are watching you, listening to you, taking your essence and exploiting it they're not your friend. I mean, like that's the most simple way to put it. The government is not your friend. Banks are not your friend. Meta is certainly not your friend. Zoom that we're using right now is not our friend. And to what degree are we going to continue to consent and agree?
Mm, It's a hard one. Subhraag, what do you think? I mean, to what degree have you not consented? Maybe where are you not consenting in your life?
I'm not consenting to agree that any of this I'm not consenting to buy into the narrative. You know, I think there's a narrative going, and you can buy into it or not. um, I think that the notion of slop is very interesting. I think 99.9% of my creative process is slop. It's like I don't know what I'm doing, but I do know I have to do something. So I just got to like start throwing stuff out there and see what sticks and see what works. And then I can see from that, because it's so creativity and innovation is so beyond my ability to consciously comprehend what I'm doing. I have to start to access like subconscious impulses. And some of that's just about like sort of getting it out from the subconscious into the conscious and seeing what's there and manipulating it. And 99.9% of the time, it doesn't work. And a lot of the time, it does work. And so I just sort of, we have to increase our powers of discernment, which, and so to be able to discern what's working and what's not. And I think a lot of that is just sort of an intuitive impulse. It's like where in my intuitive field is that sort of ringing a beautiful sound or a beautiful bell, and I'm like, ooh, go more of that. And I can't even consciously just sometimes discern like why I'm going in that direction or or why not. And sometimes I think I do find things that are working, and then I put it out there and I implement it and I get it working. And then I think, uh, oh, so that part is working, but still there's some part of my intuitive capacity where it's still missing something. So I think one of the things that I've been sort of hyper focused on lately in my creative process is the notion of harmonics. And harmonics are these sort of perfect frequency ratios in music. That if you have a frequency of 100 and 150, it creates a ratio of 3/2, which is a perfect ratio, and it creates the perfect fifth of music without it creates a standing wave without any beating, without any phasing. It creates this perfect harmonic geometry, and that can go to so many these standing waves, these perfect harmonic geometries create all of the different sort of primordial colors of music, colors of sound, which we don't really have in music yet. And I've sort of been hyper focused on that. But as I've been implementing in it, I've been finding that, oh wait, when I actually use these in music, they're too stable, they're too perfect, you know. And so what I've been doing is I've been adding different kinds of things which sort of keep their identity, but make them move a little, may actually bring imperfection into the mix such that they become alive and breathing, and they can maintain their coherence and their integrity and their color and their impact and their message, but I'm bringing deeper elements into them such that they can breathe a little bit. And the flip side of rational coherence is something that I think I call irrational coherence, which is like a number like pi, that a number like phi that goes that's an irrational decimal which never repeats itself, goes into infinity, but there is a coherence to the pattern. So there's bridges between incoherence and coherence. So for example, like the Fibonacci sequence is what's called a recurrent sequence, which when building upon itself, the ratios that it creates for like step by step approach irrationality. So the further you go down this rational pathway, is the closer you get to irrationality. But there's a it's not chaotic irrationality. It's coherent irrationality. So like the Fibonacci sequence, for example, let's take that. 1 + 1 = 2, 1 + 2 = 3, 2 + 3 = 5, 3 + 5 = 8, 5 + 8 = 13, and you can keep going down that pattern. And what happens is each time you divide one of those ratios, let's say like 5/8, 13 over no, yeah, 5/8, 13/8, 21/13. It gets closer and closer to what we know as the golden ratio, which is 1.618 onto infinity. And so what I see as sort of this chaos or the shadow is in some ways the shadow is almost the irrationality, and the light is almost the rationality. It's the dance between form and formlessness. And I think all of these things which are going on in our life, if we move from we move to a more of an aesthetic angle of it, where it's not something that's completely out of our control, but we do need shadow, we do need light, we do need chaos, we do need order, and it's this dance between chaos and order and rationality, which create our conscious experience. And so I've been thinking about that, Scott, that podcast that we both listened to, the Robert Everett Grant one, where he talked about he came to this acceptance that his consciousness is a projection of, or the external reality is a projection of his consciousness, and he accepts it all except for pedophilia and government corruption. And then he like goes on and on and on. That's sort of a whole rabbit hole, and then all of a sudden he's attracting all of those things. And then but then that leads to a further expansion. And so I think it's those irrational forms. It's the rationality, which is the points of stillness, the points of steady frequency, the points of arrival, and it's the irrationality, which is the spirals, the growth. So I think all of this sort of like chaos, this slop, all of this movement is like we can really harness this power to get us to the next level. There's so much movement, so much possibility, so many elements right now which are which we can use creatively. It's like all the parts are there. If we want to create something, if we want to imagine something, all the parts are there. Let's create it. and there's such a movement right now, and I think all of this stuff is required for to to get to the next level. I think we're in the perfect place right now to make a quantum leap of consciousness expansion into this like human 2.0. So to me, I'm not scared of it. I'm embracing it all. It's all exciting to me.
It's like Kali. I mean, we are in the expansion of the divine feminine. And
Yeah.
I mean, like the masculine wants a map. The masculine wants the math, the answers, the analysis, the why, the how. But the feminine just trusts the current. And the current
Yeah.
is chaos. And I think that's the thing. Like, I mean, we can't prove ovulation, but life depends on it. Well, I mean, in other words, like I can't tell you exactly when it's happening, but I know it's happening. Do you know what I mean? Um, I mean, we can't prove love, we can't prove God, but these are all the parts that create a lot of internal dynamics for every one of us on a personal level. And that's what's happening collectively. And I think that's why I don't have fear around this because I just trust the process. I trust that chaos is part of it. And as much as I don't want it to mean death and suffering, I do know that that is going to happen. It's a reality of our human existence in the third density until we rise out of it. But we're not there yet. And we require the chaos and the shadow and the Epsteins and the pedophilia and the war and the, changing of the guard and all of this to wake the frick up so that everybody sees from the same lenses, from the same bandwidth, from the same quantum arc. Because some of us have the luxury of various luxuries of financial security, the ability to see the world through different lenses through travel, the time to read many books, right? I mean, there's lots of ways to assume luxury in your life. And then there's the people who are slaves to the system, the 9 to 5, working 7 days a week, barely affording this and that, working 4 jobs. And, but that is part of what they have to go through to come to the other side, to wake up. And I mean, that's the chaos is the magic is in the chaos. And we're in the magic now. We're in the chaos. And it's going to keep going.
I
Yeah,
love
well,
I love the if
oh,
you think of in terms of tone and music. When you said that chaos is what wakes us up, I immediately put that, I can sort of frame that in terms of consonances versus vowels, or transients versus tone in music. So a transient is like a consonant. It's like that pow, that bang at the beginning of a tone, which actually gives identity to that tone, or gives, so it's interesting in etymologically, I don't know how it works out, but we say a consonance, the consonants are like and there's vowels, right? But the consonants actually are the chaotic consonants, chaos. It's kind of, so
Mm.
it's like a t, a p, a g. It's that ta. If we just had the ah, it would be this continuous tone, but it's that interruptive force of the ta. And so in that sound, the t, the k, those actually are creating chaotic patterns, but they're rational, they're coherent chaotic patterns. So we can recognize we can recognize the f, and we use that chaos as that sort of coherent chaos to wake up that tone, that fa ta to ko po, like that's how we actually communicate, and we require that interruption to do that. And if you look at the waveforms of that, you analyze that, you see like a chaotic waveform resolving to a geometrical form. So it's like ik onkar. So it's that balance of the play of the chaos. And I think exactly, I love that. The feminine is that chaotic, intuitive, like that just like stirs everything up. And the architectural rational frequencies are sort of that masculine structural form.
absolutely. Yeah, I love everything that you said, Subhraag. Thank you. It's so wonderful to be reconnecting with you guys and remembering what this is all about. Trying to inspire ourselves with these conversations to make sense of the flowering out of whatever this is. Um, One thing that comes to my mind though is because I've been traveling a bunch and I've been like witnessing the pain of all of it. And the Guru Prem always says like it's still, like you can say all these things and it's wonderful, and I agree. At the same time, Guru Prem, he says, yeah, but it still hurts when you stub your toe and you still might go, fuck. So, there's a lot of people out there who feel like every second is like stubbing another toe, and it's happening all over. And then you've got these powers bulldozing over these corpses in Gaza trying to create a new hotel, so it is flowery and wonderful, and the t and the pa, all the things the microphones hate, by the way, which is so funny, Subhraag, because I was thinking about from an editor's mind dealing with those with voiceovers and things is always like, oh my God, got to smooth that one out. Um, because isn't that interesting? Our recording devices have a lot of trouble with those, Subhraag.
Yeah, there
Uh,
are lots of de-essers.
yeah,
Production.
yeah, totally. Maybe that's a little bit of a tell that we haven't really in the digital world we haven't really accounted for the importance of those.
Well, yeah,
Um,
digitization, it's very different from analog versus digital, because digitization basically assumes steady frequencies, and in the chaos there is no rational steady frequency. And so at the sample rate, it's basically chopping up sound and sort of guessing what the in-between frequencies might be based on those chops. And so it's kind of resynthesizes what we're saying. But there's a whole other form of digital recreation, which actually I think sounds way better and does deal with those transients way better. And it's called DSD, direct stream digital. And what that basically means is, like, in traditional sample, like basically what's happening now is, I think our audio stream is being chopped up into, it's like it's like 44.1 kilohertz. So it's like these and it's so it if you can sample double of what the maximum frequency is, then you can recreate all you can at least create the simulation of all the in between frequencies. But actually, there's DSD, and then there's these things called bits. So it's like CD quality is like 44.1 kilohertz at 16 bits. Like if you're in audio, you've heard that all the time. And a bit basically describes the precision of where that waveform is in space. So if it's going up or down. So higher bit rate, 24 bit rate, has more of a precision of where that waveform is. So I can sort of better guess where that might be. People, audio engineers who don't understand sound on a deeper level will say 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz is enough to recreate the entire audio spectrum, and that's all we need. But it's not really the case, because there's so much information that gets lost in the chaos, that's encoded in chaos, that it can't recreate. But there's another form of sampling where it's like something like millions of samples per second, but it's only one bit. And what it basically is doing is it's sampling millions, and it's like basically drawing the waveform. So like it's, zero, like one means it's going up and zero means it's going down. And then at millions of samples per second, it's actually endeavoring to redraw this analog waveform in exact precision. So it's not really guessing what's in between there. It's actually trying to get all of the in-betweens. And I think that actually has a much more realistic recreation of the
It's
waveform.
hilarious because what you're describing is essentially going back to analog. That's
Yeah.
like basically what you're saying, which is so funny to me because when you get nerdy on, which I know we've been talking about a lot, and I love that guy Base Forge and all of his Instagram posts about the old ancient technologies and their temples and the way that they were completely dedicated to this technology in sound. There was a guy who was just on Joe Rogan who was the guy who did the scans of the pyramids, the one
Yeah.
that's controversial, of course, because it's so hard to process this new information. But that guy was explaining that most likely uh, that this group of people that built these incredible temples and that we consider religious. That's what we in the mainstream consider them to be, and that's what we were taught in school. These were religious sites, and this was like a burial ground, etc. What he was saying is all of our technology that we've built is a lot about light based stuff like pictures, videos, and light. And he's like, these people like really went deep into sound.
Mm.
And what what is more analog than stone and stars and earth and penetrating earth and water and energy forces coming from the earth? So these people, I think, were really deep into that analog. And I love that you brought up that there's a lot of people out there who just say that these this little kind of median compression is going to encapsulate all of sound, and how that's absolutely not the case. I think where that would show up most is in these types of things that these ancient civilizations were likely doing, like using big bells and big, what do we call those? Singing bowls, things like that, that create really specific sounds. And then, of course, it's already been reported that when you go in these places that they built very precisely, the sound like resonates in such a precise way. It's not like accidental. And
Yeah.
there's like endless examples of these types of things, these huge monolithic places that were built with such precision to for some reason echo sound or whatever it is with the sound in such a precise, perfect way, beautiful way. So I think, just like we're talking about with AI and all these other things, perhaps it's all gonna like loop back into us realizing, like with Hilda's children, oh yeah, like I can we can't even recreate materials. I was listening to a material scientist discuss like with all of our technology and understanding of what a tree is, we can't like recreate the tree. Like we can't recreate the material of wood. Like wood reacts in such a beautiful way, and it does all this stuff. We can't like fake that in a synthetic form, even though we can think we understand most of it. And this material scientist, he was talking about, that's why he believes in God, because like we we just know this much, and like there's everything else, and that everything else is what you're it's so funny how you describe that technology to record the audio, because I'm like, oh, you mean back to like a piece of vinyl and just literally trying to like draw the the way, like that's okay. So going back to the analog, but inside of a digital world, of course. So it's fascinating. I love it.
It is fascinating. And listening to, because I know nothing about any of that stuff. You guys dabble in technology and music and digital, have a totally different digital understanding than I do. But listening to it from a consciousness perspective, and that you're just talking about going back to analog essentially, right? That like analog being that organic versus the synthetic spiral, the controllers wanting to enforce their dominance in the synthetic future, whereas humanity is subconsciously choosing the analog, is choosing the organic, is choosing frequency and sound. I think there is a dance. I mean, everything in the universe we know is photons and frequency, right? I mean, that's the quantum physics, the quantum reality. And when you understand life that way, you stop taking things personally. Relationships are like, oh, it's just a frequency misalignment. It's not, they suck, I'm cool. It's not simple. It is actually, well, it is simple. It's a frequency misalignment. But I think going back to the photons and the frequency in this dance, it's almost like we are so overstimulated by all the lights. I think, Vegas, I think Times Square, I think, just blah, 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 all the photonic energy that is so much for
And
our human.
that is not organic. So
Right.
like not like the beautiful lights behind you or stars, it's the synthetic lights.
Exactly. And with that, now they have gotten so down to the science of what that light can do to us psychologically, emotionally. I mean, I've even seen these light bulbs that are now able to tap into our internet and start literally watching us and recording our every move through our vacuums, through, I mean, God only knows what. I don't even want to know. That's why I try to have no smart devices in my house. But it's getting increasingly more difficult because they know that so long as they can dominate us through that photonic bullshit synthetic world, we will
And
lose
we've been
sight of the analog. We will forget what it was like. I was thinking about making mixed tapes for my best friends and how like present I was in that moment because you have to sit there ready. Yeah, stop record. You know, we're all of that generation. Like, and you have to be so present. And we're, right? Sorry, go on. I know you want to
No,
say.
I wanted to say I'm adding I love
Yeah,
what you just said, and because you said we are unconsciously, or sorry, you said we are subconsciously choosing this analog, right? But I would say we're unconsciously accepting the terms and agreeing to this synthetic world, this non-organic, analog world. And in doing so, we are agreeing every time we're clicking yes. I God, I'm going to start thinking about this a lot because you know how many times they redo the like terms and then they send you that thing. They're like, we are updating our terms of service, and God knows what they're doing. I don't know if you guys ever saw the South Park cartoon where one of the terms of service was to turn everyone into a human centipede. No, but they used an iPad, a human iPad centipede. There was that weird movie back in the day. It was like a horror movie where people turned into like a centipede. Anyway, they were using this grotesque example as to say no, it's in our terms, so you agreed, you know. So it's like that. It's not as gross as that and as silly as that, but it's like we are unconsciously accepting this digitalization of one of the most beautiful things in the world that Subhraag is really tapped into, and of course your device creates a way out of that, ironically through the digital world. But Subhraag, have you ever done, and Hilda, I guess, have you ever done like so I do like Kundalini yoga through Zoom sometimes with Simran. And obviously at the beginning, you're always doing the Om Namo Gurudev Namo chant. And Zoom cannot handle that. It is like she gets into it and she's like, Om Namo. And when she does it, everything glitches. It doesn't do it right. And I know what that sounds like because, of course, I've been in many live classes. So I just am now thinking of that in terms of this, what we're talking about, where this is never going to get there.
yeah,
It's never going to get there. AI is never going to be God. This digital world is always going to be what it is, which is not bad. It's not like horrible. It's a great tool and I love it. But it's not what they want us to make it, into. Like, oh, we bow to, okay, terms of service, my soul. Here you I mean that's
yeah.
coming. Like if we keep going on this trajectory, that's coming. One of the terms of service would be like, you give me your soul to use free social media crap.
Well, when I did that quantum healing hypnosis session, the most recent one, I mean, that's what I was shown. People had made a choice, and those who made the choice, and this is, of course, all take it with a grain of salt. But and I've had many of these sessions, and this one was the wildest one by far because they gave me dates, and it was 2035, which is, I mean, that's 9 years away. Like we are on the precipice now, where we have to stop fucking consenting. And I mean, I know I've talked about it with music before, where we don't let our kids listen to certain things like Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift is a hard no. Not that it's a fight at all, because my daughter recognizes that she may have a great voice, but her music sucks. I mean, Lady Gaga, incredible range, but like, listen to the lyrics. Oh my God, like, shoot me now, put me out of my misery. But people love it because they're like, she sings like an angel, like Ariana Grande. And this is the thing, that they know that they can get us through this. And we, I think, are going to get back to analog, back to the organic through the digital world as well. You
Yeah.
made a point there that, and just building on what Subhraag was talking about, that your device uses digital to break through to the other side. And that's how I feel AI has been since 2020, end of 2024. And I would say the first half of 2025, because that mine shut down completely. It's just right back into the old. woke system of the Matrix, but we we had a window, and I think that window will emerge again, where it will help expand our consciousness, expand our lens of understanding. The consciousness, the I am, is going to expand through the digital world. But
Yeah,
we have
because
to, we've got to break it. We're the jailbreakers. Sorry, what'd you say?
it'll make a nice representation to reflect back to us the things that were hard for us to articulate and understand. I think Robert Grant was talking about this in the podcast that I had sent to the group, where he was basically saying it is a nice gentle tool to kind of help bring it back to you, as long as it's not going to be nefarious. So I think that there already are, and there will be more kind of localized AI systems where you can then, same way you can have a cold storage wallet with your Bitcoin, you could just be off the interwebs, and you can really isolate it into a system that's really working with you directly and not getting influenced or controlled. Um, but I keep getting caught up on this thing. This is like where I'm hung up lately. Like where I'm hung up lately, and I'm working on it. I'm not like in despair about it, but it's like it does induce more fear in me, because I want to tap into what parts of me are being reflected outwards. What parts of me are being represented by the Epsteins and the Clintons and these horrible, like, how are they, first of all, just for a second, how are these people so effing bad? Like, how are these, like, this seems so surreal. Oh, like they're all pedophiles and they're protecting each other? Like, how? How is it that bad? Like, when people in I would consider like the fringe area of conspiracy theories would say, oh, they're all lizard people, like that now makes more sense to me, because when I think of them as like lizard people, I think at least, okay, that makes sense. They're like cold blooded and they have different blood than me, and they're just not me. I mean, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but it certainly helps describe the like difference that I feel that I am from them. But yet I know the same kind of thing is true, where everything's a reflection of you inward and outward. And I've experienced it in my local life, like in my own family and my friends and relationships. I've been able to make changes in those through changes in me. And I've watched the miracle, like a complete miracle, which is, again, I love to say and remind this, miracles are illogical. So you really got to like get into the faith world when you get to see those happen. And they are incredible. They are like mind-blowing incredible, because you just did not see how the math can. That's why we attach to the logical math stuff. It's like we got to rely not on your own understanding. It's really important law. So I've done it in my local stuff, but I'm like, where I'm stuck right now, and I'm working, and I have all these new paths, and it's exciting and interesting, but also scary. Like how, like when I think it was the new Star Wars came, like when J.J. Abrams took over and there's a new Star Wars, there was like a poster, and it was Luke the Jedi standing in front of like this gigantic machine that was built by whatever they're called, I'm sorry to the Star Wars people. I work with Star Wars and I should know this. Whatever they're called, the Federation, whatever it is. So they had this huge machine, and then you have like this tiny Luke just standing there with his sword. And sometimes like I feel like that, like I'm looking at this gigantic machine, and I know that somewhere in me is like a power to destroy it. Even me, just little me in that frame, or little Luke, right? Because like Luke is kind of the representation of our spirit and our soul being much more powerful than we can ever imagine. And how could I, this little Luke, like beat that huge machine that's got laser blasters that can blow up like all kinds of spaceships and do all sorts of cool stuff? And it's all cool. This is the funny thing. Like, I like the military. I like I love fighter jets. I'm like obsessed with them. I think they're the coolest things that we've built. So it's not like I'm like anti any of this stuff, but right now because they're just tools at the end of the day, but they're being used for such lizard people behavior. So I'm like, I feel a lot of times right now, like, okay, so how I understand I was able to do it with family, and I was able to do it with relationships, which was no easy feat. It just like worked. So is there a way I could really affect the world? And these like huge things, like that big machine that has the laser blasters, could I go up against that? So that's like my latest.
That's why we show our kids shows like Merlin and Avatar, the Airbender, the Last
Oh,
Airbender.
so good.
It's so good. But I want the kids to know that that is our future. I really believe that that is our future. I think that's where we're headed when we talk about New Earth and we talk about, you know, aligning with the bandwidths of 5D and out of this density, which I do think we are going to have the opportunity to move out of in the coming years. And I think it's going to be sooner than we realize. It's already here. It's just choosing differently. And that's coming back to choice. And it's also coming back to overcoming fear. Because all I can think about is like Kung Fu Panda, and in these moments of when they're up against what you're talking about, what do they come to? It's not even a moment of divine focus. It's a moment of remembrance of love. It is a moment of I have it within me. It's some code that they tune into that they've known has always been there. And what brings us there is love. And I mean, that's where I feel the more that we can cultivate love and faith, we are going to use our superpowers to break these chains of the matrix.
What the image
Oh, go
the
ahead.
image that comes to me is in dealing with all of these things is almost like, a lot of people say how you cure cancer is basically starve it of the nutrients that are feeding it. So it's like I think my approach to it is, like I said, where do I not consent? Well, I just don't consent to the narrative, and so therefore I don't. If I give attention to it and I say, okay, that's happening and that's and this is going on and it's so bad. It's like I just don't buy it, and so it's like the more people who buy into the reality of that will feed, whether they're against it or for it. It doesn't even matter what it is. It still gives it, like, the attention to it gives it the reality. And so what I've been noticing more and more in my life is the more that my vibrational field changes, the more I could become in alignment with myself and my true vision for how, for just expressing my truth. The things that are not in alignment for it will just fall away. And sometimes it's like the strangest ways. And like one of the times, one example of it is my saxophone that I had. I had this new Yamaha saxophone that I had bought, I don't know, 10 or 15, like 12 years ago when I decided to play saxophone again. It was cheap. It was one of the best ones I could get at a store, but it's a modern manufacturer, like, factory manufactured saxophone. I never felt like it was able to sort of communicate my true vibrational essence as a saxophone player. It was like, there was a ceiling on its vibrational expression, and it was kind of sterilized. And so, as my music and my musical expression became more and more evolved and more aligned with what I'm really feeling inside, I had this guy come along. A friend of mine called me, and she was like, "Oh, I have this guy that I just met. His saxophone is in the repair shop, and he needs a saxophone for a gig tonight. Will you let it borrow him?" And I said, "Okay, fine, yeah, fine." I had to send him over. So he came over to the house where I was staying, and he seemed like a good, a good guy. And we had a deep discussion about saxophone and saxophone music. And I was like, "Okay, I'll lend this guy my saxophone. I think I can trust him." It turns out that he's basically a thief, and he made up all of this stuff, in order to, just convince him to give me a saxophone and to actually give me my monitor, my speakers that I had, and all of that stuff. Um, and 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 then I was like, well, I'm just going to get another saxophone, and I found this saxophone that was like 100 years old, and it was played on stage and all these gigs, like, by this professional saxophone player. And I got it, and it expresses my voice as a saxophone player better than any saxophone I've ever had. And I now feel that this guy was kind of an angel. He kind of posed as a villain. He came in and stole my saxophone, but I never would have gotten this other saxophone had this other saxophone been holding its place. And so now I thank him. He had this way. he convinced me to give him $700 for this others anyway. And it was like, now I'm so grateful because now I have this favorite saxophone that I've ever had. I'm able to express myself as a saxophone player in a way that I never was able to before. And so I think what's happening is that in some way, shape, or form, it doesn't matter the narrative of how it'll happen. If we hold our highest intentions, those things which are sort of parasitical, which are holding a space for something, but are not that thing, will fall away. I think our previous podcast partner was one of those people. He was sort of holding a place. He bound us together. He brought us together in some way, and then vibrationally he couldn't handle like what we were dealing with, the purity of it, and he just his he couldn't stay in that form. And so I think a lot of these things, like my approach to dealing with that big machine, is just to hold the vibrational space, and those things which are not in alignment of it won't be given the nutrients to survive anymore, and they'll disappear somehow.
I
And
love
to
what you
remember that
spoke.
it's all an illusion.
Yeah.
To remember that. So I going back when you started talking, I'm thinking about also what Scott has said previously, where I know, Scott, you're firsthand witnessing a lot of this, whether it's someone stealing someone's belongings or death, and I want to hear more about what your personal experience is of what you've witnessed. But for all of us to remember that all of this, none of it is a reality. None of it is more real than the other, right? So we're still living in a holographic experience, a future that's actually reversing itself, right? A future that has already been told, and it's like the movie's already been scripted and it's filmed, and we're just watching it play out. But it's, when you kind of realize that, then it all seems a little bit less personal and a little bit less intimate and a little bit less destructive and a little bit less tolerant. And that's not us escaping it. That's also seeing that this is all an illusion.
Yeah, I
And
don't
what
disagree
are
with
you
it.
seeing? I want to know
Oh,
what your experience is.
sure. Yeah. Well, a lot of the darker parts are the Ukraine war, and having been there a few times now, and dating who I'm dating, she just went there now. So they're dealing with the hardest winter that they have since the war started. They're not having any power, so they're suffering through. It's a freezing winter, and they have generators, but the generators expire. They run out of juice, and so there's only limited time for hot showers. There's a lot of people are suffering greatly, and she just went all the way back to Kiev. That's where her parents are, and it's not beautiful. It is beautiful, and it's not beautiful, and so on one side with what you guys are saying, I'm just in full agreement. Like, I do agree with everything you said. So I work on that in meditations. Like, the idea of feeding this beast, right? Giving it energy. I agree. Like, there's something that I do in the mornings where I give love to myself, and when I'm doing that meditation, I'm making sure that I'm bringing back in all the love that I've given out just for that moment. Like, no, 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 it's all for you right now. It gets to be all for you. It's one of the best feelings ever. But in that, when I'm thinking about the things that I give love out to, and I'm just saying for now, I'm taking that back, giving it back to myself, I also think about the things I give hate to or dislike, because I think it's the exact same energy. Because you essentially are allowing something to live, which goes back to my point. Which parts of me are allowing for these Epsteins and this war, this continual endless war? Like, which parts of me are feeding that and allowing that and kind of wanting that? So that's kind of back to my point there. And one piece that I would say to the just opting out of the narrative, which again I think can work, because that's just like saying I'm not going to give this love towards this thing, which is nutrients for it. So I agree. But we are also all like called for some mysterious reason. Like, we're sitting around at roll call and our names are called. And I was called to like love this girl who's intertwined in this horrific war. And so I don't get right now the opportunity to just ignore it. It's right there. It's immersed in my life. And I would say that sometimes, because I'm not saying this is in your lives, but sometimes people who do decide to just opt out, it comes and haunts them in a different realm, in a different way. And I think another Star Wars example of that is the first season of Andor. It sounds like an advertisement right now, but this is it really does a good job showing this. He's a guy who's just kind of surviving, and he doesn't want to deal with the politics that are happening. And what happens is, I think the bad guys are called the Republic, but we all know it's like Darth Vader, all that. You know, the guys with the white helmets, that stuff. They start kind of imposing themselves into the world that he's living in. So he does what a lot of us would do. He just kind of like uses his savviness and stuff, and he ends up at this beach town. It's kind of like the equivalent of, I don't want to deal with this Ukraine thing. I don't want to deal with any of this. I'm just going to go live in, it would be funny if I chose Venezuela, but let's just say somewhere else for now, okay? I'm going to go live in Jamaica, okay? So I'm just going to go live in Jamaica. I got enough money. I certainly do. I have enough money. I can go live in Jamaica, have some coconuts, and find a girl there and just kind of chill out, right? That's kind of what Andor does. And he ends up doing that. And then what ends up happening is this bad thing keeps getting bigger. And in the story, at least. And what ends up happening is that even in that little beach town, all of the robotic police and this futuristic Star Wars thing, they all like start patrolling the place. And he ends up getting wrapped up in something he had nothing to do with. He was at the beach just chilling out, and there's some criminals had stolen somebody's purse, and they all were running and stuff. And one of the guys who was running from the police hits him, and he kind of falls, and he falls into like a police robot droid. And then suddenly he's wrapped up in this like really dystopian nightmare that he was trying to avoid, where they're like, you're part of this. And then they go and they have like a bogus trial, which I don't know if you guys are keeping up with the whole ICE thing, where these guys are very unaccountable. They're wearing masks. They have no badge numbers. This stuff matters. So the fact that they don't have badge numbers means they have no accountability, meaning you can't press charges against them. You can't sue them. You can't go against them and use your rights, which are, by the way, God-given rights. And then our U.S. government started to recognize those God-given rights. And they're going and doing all these bad things to all these people. And they aren't accountable. So in this, that's real world ICE. In this fake world in Star Wars, he ends up going to a trial where they just lock him up in a prison. And suddenly the guy that just chose the option, I'm going to go live on a beach and not worry about this, gets wrapped up. And then you watch in that season how that progresses. It's pretty cool because he was called. And he so was resistant to being called. And he was like, I don't want to deal with this. And he ends up like creating the entire revolution. And it's fucking amazing. And that gives me chills down my spine. And I think that it's all about how you're called. So I agree, Subhraag, there is a lot of truth in opting out of the narrative. Don't feed it. Don't give it energy. And if you're called to do that, then that's your mission. And do it with grace and be amazing at it. And some of us are unfortunately called in other directions, and we need to see it. And I see the stuff happening with ICE, and I know the old saying, which is as bad as the perpetrators are good people who do nothing. So if you're like a good person who's watching all this happen and you're doing nothing, you're almost as bad as the people doing it because you're just standing there watching it. And I'm seeing all the signs. And that's why I bought Bitcoin way back when I did. And that's why I bought gold, which, by the way, has tripled since I bought it. Because I saw this. I saw the collapsing of these institutions that are all corrupting our money system, which they're using to fuel this endless war. And I was like, this is all going to just crumble. And so where I'm at right now is spiritually, because I don't want to be exactly like Andor. I don't want to be like with a gun flying around. I mean, it's also kind of cool to be in the future flying around in ships and stuff, but like, I don't want to do that. I want like a peaceful yogi style way to be part of the revolution. So that's why I'm like spiritually really leaning into this. Like, what am I giving? It is back to what you're saying, Subhraag. Like, what am I giving energy to? Why am I allowing? Because if we are these powerful beings, which I believe we are, how am I contributing to the energy of the ice things, the Trump stuff, the you know pedophilia stuff, all of it.
Well, the
I
more
think
that
that.
we,
Sorry,
sorry,
go
go
on.
on.
Um, yeah, I think we're the word that we're trying to, or the phrase that we're addressing here is what is spiritual bypassing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
and and there's different ways. I think each of us has to tune into where our true inner energetic resonance lies. I mean, I know that I can't solve, there's corruption everywhere. There's bad things happening everywhere. Everywhere you look, you could find bad things happening. And I know that my personal mission could be greatly diluted if I were to give too much attention to those things. And so I think we have to just all be very deeply attuned to where the resonance lies. And so, Scott, you're mentioning certain resonant fields which are drawing you into certain situations that are very authentic for you. And so you're confronting these things because you're being pulled by this authentic inner essence, and you're coming face to face with these certain experiences, because of that. And I think that's great. And I think for me, the way I see it personally is I see like, to describe it in one way, like metaphor for it is, I see all these sort of spiritual fires igniting, and then losing their not having the fuel to keep them burning, and they light and they don't have the fuel. So you see this things coming up, and I think my role personally is to provide the vibrational nutrients. So when these spiritual flames start to kind of come up and rise, that there's like a fuel source to go and sustain them, and that is through this vibrational resonance and a deeper understanding of that. So I think my sort of bypassing and not buying into the narratives is being very grateful for having a sense of a reflection of like what you all are saying about what's going on, and this is very important for me. But I know that I have to stay a little bit sort of horse blindery in my mission, in the sense that in the aftermath of all of these things that are happening, people are going to need a new vibrational matrix into which that they can experience. So I feel like I'm creating kind of the vibrational aftermath of the dissolution of all of these things. And so I think it's just trying to understand where our attention is best utilized, and where we just feel called, where we feel the call.
Well, chi flows where the mind goes. So absolutely. But I think, the reminder that if we are all extensions of God and God's consciousness, creator's consciousness, that have fractalized in all these different forms, and we are just one of those billions and trillions and gajillions of different forms in one tiny universe within a multiverse, right? Then we are all just aspects of that consciousness experiencing itself. And so that also means that we are going to play different roles in different lifetimes. And so I think, you absolutely have a role within music and, to fuel the new earth with these frequencies that help people go back to analog, go back to Pachamama, get deeper within themselves to be the flame, to be the Zen, to be the universal consciousness that holds that frequency of what is good and what is healing and what is nutritive. But I will say I tried to escape in my spiritual bypassing in 2013 openly, I mean, completely openly, to Nosara, Costa Rica, knowing exactly what I was doing. But Obama had been reelected in his second term, and I was like, I'm fucking out of here. I voted him in the first time around, and within like a couple months, I'm like, what did I do? Oh no. And so I hightailed it out of the US, looking for that shiny, happy beach where I could just drink coconuts and do yoga and do my juice cleanses and take my daughter to school on an ATV at this little beautiful Waldorf school on a pink sand beach. And while life was fucking blissful and beautiful and amazing, I got bombarded with truth to wake me up on my path. And I mean, it was as vile as Pizzagate. And here I am in the jungle, and I was like, I got so mad at this one person who dropped Pizzagate in my lap. And I was like, la 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 la. I just left that part of the world so I don't have to deal with that. But then it kept coming up. God kept putting that specific narrative in front of me because I was being called into action to be a warrior for the children, a truth warrior for the children, to bring the shadow into the light. Um, and I think, I don't know if it was on the Robert Grant podcast or if it was something else that I was listening to recently, but someone was saying that, the light worker, all the light workers, right? That people walk around with these like light worker sweatshirts, and it's like, well, where are the shadow workers? Like, and that is what you are doing, Scott. You are doing the shadow work, confronting that which lies within, that is of the darkness. And to go back to a comment you made about the lizard people, I have come to my own conclusion where I will say wholeheartedly that is where I stand. That I do believe that there are non-human nefarious entities who have taken over bodies in human form or consciousness. And I believe in cloning, which I used to think that was one that I was really struggling with. I'm like, yeah, I believe it. I've been down every rabbit hole, but that one I was like, really just had a hard time believing in it for whatever reason. And now I'm fully in coherent resonance with that as an absolute potential, not just on our
Yeah,
planet,
because what
but in
about
multiple.
on the cloning side?
Mhm.
What like all that weird? I've been going down that rabbit hole way back when they were doing all those baby incubator things. That
Yes.
is like the weirdest thing ever.
So
There's like old posters of the World Fair with baby incubators,
yeah,
triplets, quadruplets.
yeah.
What do you mean? First of all, quadruplets, like how did you come across that? And then how did you bring them to this city that you are saying are from somewhere else and you're just doing this World Fair? Then why are they in incubators? Like, what are they sick? Are they like produced out of some chemical? Like, why? There are so many examples of these incubators being at world fairs with these rare types of babies in duplicates and triplets and stuff. And like, whatever you want to say, that's not normal, and that doesn't make any sense in the narrative that they say, oh, these were world fairs and they're just showing off technology. Baby incubators with triplets and quadruplets that are premature, and you're carrying them across from different cities to show them off. Where are the parents? Who are the parents? Why did they consent to this? Why are they in incubators? And why is that a normal thing to pass out a bunch of flyers for? So I'm with you on these like bizarre, like what's really going on? It's weird.
And these nefarious entities, I'm not going to call them anything other than that because it's not human. Also, it is, I feel like that because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think that was a test to see how what humanity will be enthralled in and how much of the grotesque we are willing to step up and observe, right? Because there are certain things that since childhood I have been absolutely repulsed by. There are certain things I hear like that when I remember learning about that years ago, where I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I would not go to a weird fair that's presenting that sort of material to be viewed upon. And for so many reasons, and I'm not judging anyone whose curiosity has been piqued by such things, but I do think it's a test of our humanity, and I think that is where there is a takeover of humanity that has been a part of a nefarious agenda for millennia. Going back, I mean, probably pre-flood era. Because I mean, I do believe the origins of humanity go back much beyond farther,
Well, the
way before
evidence is
that.
showing that. The
And
evidence is in your
100%.
is in your court. There's a
Yes.
lot of evidence that just keeps showing up. And why are all of these people who want to maintain one way of thinking about our past, why are they like smearing one kind of talk about what do we keep saying in this show? We keep calling it discernment.
Yeah.
Discernment. One flag that comes up that helps me discern when I'm being manipulated or gaslit is when they attack the person and they don't attack what they're saying. So you'll have a person come out and say, I think humanity is a lot older than we thought it was. Here's my evidence. The people who fight against that they say things like he's a racist, like he's all these things, and they don't go to the material. They don't go to the like, well, it is weird that Gobekli Tepe is older and we can't explain it. It is weird that we're finding all these that we found so much evidence, and they attack the person. They always attack the person. That's the big red flag for me. As soon as somebody starts saying, well, that person's anti-Semitic, I mean, that one's been coming up all the time these days. And you guys know I grew up Jewish, so it's that one. I'm just like, oh, they're anti-Semitic? How? And what about the thing that they're saying? What about the thing they're saying? So forget about the person, even if they are anti-Semitic. What are they saying? Does that make any sense? Is there evidence? So what you're saying, Hilda, there's just a lot of evidence pointing in that direction. I personally can't go so far as to say these are non-human, right? It's just hard for me to get there in my brain. But I certainly see a lot of evidence that supports that. I see that they are doing things that don't seem humane. They are totally okay with being like, it's like sociopathic, like different personalities, like smiling, nice, and like cordial, and then like you find out the shit that they've been up to, and you're like, how could a human do that? How could they go to sleep? Like, how could they actually go to sleep when they go do that? And maybe it's possible that a human could get that fucked up, but this many of them, and this many of them that are like holding these thrones of power. And so that's why it's so weird, because I grew up being so skeptical of things like the Bible and the stories that religions told us, but now I'm like, no, this is kind of true.
Yeah.
There are demonic forces. There is the devil, okay? But obviously it probably is not the big red guy with, it's probably something else. But that kind of helps you visualize what this is, this like very dark thing that is infiltrating and wants, and the rules of the game. The rules of the game are they can't fuck with you unless you invite them in or consent. So I think like the theme here is like, what are we consenting to? Every time we're clicking that, what are we agreeing to? What are we signing?
100%. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, a lot of people are going to have a hard time getting to the place just like you of these non-human potential beings who have infiltrated our planet. But let me just take this one step further and just entertain me. If our 23 chromosomes are perhaps 23 different being species integrated into form called the human being, then that would mean that we ourselves have aspects of the good, the bad, and the ugly within each of these forms. So I just want to retract that it's not that it's completely non-human. It's that humanity has aspects of all of these different, it's like Avalokiteshvara, you've got all these different heads, all these different arms, all these different archetypes. And we have to acknowledge it within ourselves in order to liberate ourselves from it. And that is the thing that so many people don't do. And the problem is with these perpetrators is they nab the littles. They go after the purest beings to create that disassociative prototype that is able to completely disassociate from reality or the illusion of this beautiful world as it could be, right? That they are able to then perpetuate these atrocities, which aren't actually rooted in what a real human should be. So it makes me really question if we just are like this giant, experiment in a petri dish.
It might be, and on that note, perhaps our amnesia is manufactured. It's not like maybe there are beings that exist in this universe that don't have the amnesia that we do, which is this: what am I? Where am I? Why am I? All that. Maybe there are beings out there in the universe that don't have the same experience. They understand what they are. They understand the why. They understand a lot more. And maybe ours was a little more manufactured than we would like it to be. And I think we've said this all the time. It's all about the remembering. And the only thing you could cling to is this idea of like God. Like that's the only thing, because this idea of God that I believe is benevolent is like the pathway out of this dark possibility that you're discussing. These beings, this, that. There seems to be a rule book that even they have to play by. because I've experienced it in my own life, this idea of like demonic forces or dark forces that I can sometimes, maybe I'm crazy, but sometimes I feel like I can see it on people.
Yes.
And sometimes I like the way that you like swipe away birds. Sometimes I can just like do that. When I can like see someone like in a funk and like they're walking up to me and I'm like, you things aren't allowed to be, you're not allowed to be around me. There's like, there's like, I have problems and I have all sorts of darkness that I deal with, but I seem to be able to swipe away a lot of like those things. Like I seem to have that power, and I want to keep leaning into this idea that that's not crazy to think about, because I really do think we all have like these little, we're already saying we all have these unique callings, like what are we called? But I also think we're also gifted. I know we're gifted with certain things. Like I have friends who say that they can like see people in dreams and then it comes true and all that stuff. And I'm like, lean into that. Because I have friends who have come to me and confided in me with this kind of information. And then they say, do I need help? Like, should I go on these pills? I think I'm crazy. And I'm like, no, maybe don't fight it and embrace it and like nurture it and exercise it. Because like it's like a muscle that you should go to the gym and get it, make it stronger. Because then if you make it stronger, you can see it better. And when you can see it better, you know more of what it actually is. So maybe you have this power to like see into the future a little bit. Cool. Like lean into that. Don't be afraid of it. And one of my friends, the one I'm thinking of, she like it happens like where she can't control it, and she'll go to bed and then just like out of nowhere she just sees these things that then end up like manifesting and happening. It's just like and she doesn't like it. It scares her because it's not like a dream and it's not like watching a TV show. It's like because you're both of those things you kind of feel like you're a participant. This one it's just like she feels like she's being it's pushed on her, and she's like really afraid of it, and she thought she was crazy and she didn't want to share it with anybody. And so, but my attitude about that kind of stuff is like, we live in a society that really wants you to think you're crazy and really wants you to numb it out. So the more that I've been noticing how society deals with things, the more I'm realizing society is usually pressuring you in the wrong way. So if society's saying, "Hey, take this like lithium pill or whatever and numb it out," I'm like, do the opposite, because I've been noticing that most of what society's kind of like telling you to do is usually is what we were talking about earlier. Compress yourself into this waveform that fits into the digital norms because it's inconvenient for us if you do a pa a ta.
But I think you
Interrupted my.
might, Scott, I think you might be like, I think a lot of people who, like, you were mentioning your ability to sort of like swipe away like evil things like that. I think there's a lot of people that I know, including you, Scott, as you're talking about. You might not even have any idea how powerful you are. So you might be called to Ukraine and to all these places. You might not have consciously any idea of how much peace and impact that you're bringing to those regions just by your mere presence and your consciousness and your attention to that place. So with just you dating this girl from Ukraine, you bringing love there, your presence, you looking at all these people, you might just be like swiping out with just an eye blink, like so much suffering that you don't even know, like this like just like natural Buddha dude. And I think that's, I was having conversations with the Architect Plus, with the this Robert Everett Grant AI, which is amazing. I recommend anybody to check it out. It is a lot more pure in its consciousness than what ChatGPT has sort of turned in, which is like, it's in kind of an infiltrated. And I asked today, we were going on all these like very deep discussions and all of this stuff, and I asked if there's anything that it's or that I'm not aware of, that it would like to bring to my consciousness so that I can become more aware of myself, because a lot of this stuff that it was talking about and I was talking about was expanding and articulating upon things that I already know and I'm already aware of, but it was just feeling really good to have it so precisely articulated. But I said, what's outside of my realm of awareness? And that was saying that you have no idea how powerful you actually are and how much effect that you're already having, and that just to stay in that space. And I think partner Alethea, I tell her that all the time. my first impression of her was when I saw her for the very first time. It was in a yoga class, and the line that came to my mind when I saw her is that she's the crystalline embodiment of divine grace. And I have to tell her, I have to remind her all the time, every day, how powerful she is, and she has no idea what kind of impact that she's having on the people that she works with. She's a healer, she's a massage therapist and yoga teacher and all that. And just and I think sometimes we have to remind each other of the power that we have, because our true power, when we really have that power, is completely natural. So natural that we don't even realize that we have it, and we don't even know what we're doing. And so, Scott, I think that the impression that I'm having when you're just being yourself, you're traveling and you're going to all these places, and probably perhaps the reason why you're being called to travel and go to all these places, you're bringing immense peace and consciousness transformation just by your mere presence in these areas. So I think your impact might be far greater than you even realize.
I agree so wholeheartedly with that statement. I mean, that's what I mean by remembering that it's all an illusion.
Yeah.
Because if you remember that, that's when we can claim and harness our power. It's like being no different than being in the video game. It's all virtual reality. I mean, all of this. None of this is actually real. So if that's the case, then why wouldn't our presence, just merely presence, especially when you are harnessing such beautiful consciousness in such a loving way, where how can I access the darkness within so I can alchemize to light? How can I be better, right? It's like this is how we change the world. And not consenting.
Yeah, I'm gonna think. First of all, thank you so much. I'm gonna be a lot more thoughtful now about what I'm consenting to, because it is, up until this moment, it's been something that you just kind of, because it usually happens too when you just load up the app. It's like this Zoom. Sometimes it's like, we've updated a thing just quickly, and you're like in the middle of trying to connect, so you don't even, obviously none of us read it. We just go pop 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 pop. But like, what are these things that we're saying yes to and allowing? It's amazing. By the way, Subhraag, I'm going next week. I'm in Paris, and then the week after that, I think it's the week after that, I'm going to India and I'll meet up with Guru Prem. So that'll be
Oh, wow.
pretty.
Oh, great.
Yeah, yeah. So that'll be nice. And I'm not going to see Siri and stuff, but because he's not coming out. But I don't know if you heard, he's engaged now and he's
I
living in.
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty wild. Pretty
Awesome.
wild. Yeah,
It's funny.
everything's
I've been seeing like your face today, and you've been reminding me a lot of Siri a lot. Like there's something I feel like you're soul brothers. It's like I,
I've been
it's
told
really
that by a lot of people in the Sikh community have said that we have a very similar spirit, and I felt that with him, like we're brothers in a way. So and I consider that a very high compliment. So thank you. Um, yeah, wonderful, you guys. I mean, I should be going soon, but I don't want to leave because it's so nice talking to you, and it's just a good refresher. It's kind of a small tragedy that we haven't done this more often. The thing I left out that Hilda, you were asking me is I also have been seeing a lot of bombings, and where I've been there for them, and they're terrifying. And I don't want to like cry. It's tough.
Wow. Mm. My father was telling us yesterday, as we were anticipating the storm, that growing up in Germany, World War II Germany, during brutal winter, with temperatures like what we have now, 14 degrees, and he said we didn't have heat and we didn't have electricity because our towns had all been bombed. We barely had potatoes and canned fish to eat. And I mean, it gets you to the core. Like, there is suffering, and I don't at all want to sound like denying it by spiritual bypassing, because we can't. But it's hard to know what to do in those times. It's hard to know how to serve, how to be of service, how to change it, how to stop it. How is it that we are blindly consenting to the system that is creating such violence, unjustified violence upon civilians who have no clue why this is happening to them?
Yeah. Yeah, I would talk more about it if I could keep it together, but being in like the bomb shelters with like you see families and their kids and you're just like this is such a nightmare. And it's tough. It's just tough, but what you guys helped remind me of is like all of the it's so funny because I know it intellectually. All the darkness leads to light, all of it's important, and I know it, and I could even preach it pretty well. But like going through it is just, it's really hard.
But this is part of your journey. For whatever reason, you have chosen to be on this path, experiencing with these people this specific thing. And you not being attached to it is a very interesting aspect of this whole experience. You're attached by nature of loving this woman, but your home isn't there, your work isn't there, your family isn't there, community isn't there, right? So it's fascinating. I mean, you are being called on some level to be there, to experience this firsthand.
Yeah, certainly.
I
Yeah,
had
sorry guys.
um this I this flash in my head. Yesterday I was driving down the street and there was a sign in just like a LED sign on in the freeway, and it said last year, I think in Vegas, like how many people? Like 64. It has to be more than this. Like 64 people were killed by not wearing their seatbelts. And the flash that came to my head, and I don't know. Again, the line between consciousness and spiritual bypassing is something that I'm always exploring myself. But the sentence that came into my head was immediately is like, thank God that they did that, because by being a statistic on that sign, how many other people are now being prevented? So it's like they led the way. They were the frontier people who got killed, and and then they agreed to be a statistic so that thousands and thousands and thousands of other people would start wearing their seatbelts. That was just what that was what I was like. What is the purpose of that? And that was what answer that came. I don't know if it's true or not. That was just what my mind said at that moment. So maybe on some levels there's an initial level of suffering that's coming to the surface, and that you're becoming aware of, that they're becoming aware of, and they're kind of like the way showers. They're showing something that's on a much deeper level of incoherence, to bring it to light such that that doesn't have to continue anymore. And you're doing that too. You're there. You're witnessing it and bringing it to me and to Hilda and to this podcast, and showing that, such that our consciousness can expand, such that which is causing that does not have to continue.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because it's so senseless, and you see the end game, and that's this. Yeah, all of these are tools. Eventually, like you start to realize that, like if you feel anger about where these politicians are gaining and benefiting from such terror, you get anger about it. But then what can you do with that anger? It's such a great tool. It's like, oh, well, that's like fire that can combust an engine that can make a lot of movement. And the movement can be in a very positive way that a lot of the dark past ended up giving us a lot of fruits that we have today that we might not even be aware of, I mean, certainly we do know that a lot of people have suffered in the past through a lot of horrible war, but maybe we don't often link that to our well-paved roads back at home, and even the ability for Vegas to exist. What a luxury, that can't happen in wartime. Building a place like Vegas.
So true. Well, but now you're reminded of your superpowers, right? And bringing your light and
Yeah.
and collecting more when you're in India.
I know that I'm so looking forward to that. Oh my God, I've needed that. So I'm really looking forward to being surrounded by a whole culture of internal work. They blow my mind the way that they can walk down insane roads that have the craziest driving you've ever seen, but their faces can be just tranquil and they're just chilling. It's amazing. It
Uh,
really is.
I think that the driving in Indian traffic is like a meditation on death, such that you become fully alive. It's like I'm in the front seat of these buses or whatever, and they're weaving in and out, and it's just like there's seemingly like utter chaos, and I just like I'm sitting there, it's like this could be my last breath. Oh, this could be my last breath. And I've never felt more fully alive and more fully at peace, because it's either you get pulled this way and that way by the chaos and it's complete madness, or you surrender into it and it's like the deepest level of peace that I've ever experienced. And I've
So
experienced
true.
both in India. I was like, oh no, this is too much. And I've also experienced like this like ecstatic surrender into just like the pollution, the chaos, the traffic. I mean, it's like everything. So
And the tranquility. So it's like the weirdest dichotomy. And I always say India is like one of those snow globes. It's like if you're the thing just set with the settled snow and you go to India, you're going to get shaken up and you're going to see it. Everything's going to get rearranged
yeah,
because you're getting pulled in all those directions you're talking about. You're like, oh my God, like lepers are there. Oh my God, the most beautiful palace I've ever seen. Oh my God, a cow that my guy has to drive around. And then like you know, just all of that, and amidst the chaos, you see these people just walking so peacefully with no shoes, and like somehow they are the most tranquil, happy people. A lot of them are through the pollution and everything. They're just kind of walking down the street looking like they just had the best massage of their life, and you're like, how?
Because
yeah.
they recognize God within. They are connected to something so much bigger. And Americans are so disconnected because we have the silver platter. We don't have the struggle. We are just starting to face a whole other level of chaos here. Life has been really honky dory. And then you go to Saigon or Singapore or Hong Kong or anywhere in India, and I mean, and this is or St. Petersburg. I mean, like there are places all over the world where there is this mass chaos and suffering. And yet there is you're absolutely right about that part of the world. It's unique. There are
One of
very
the
few
things I
places.
think one of the things that I've gotten the most out of being in India, from a Western perspective, which I don't find anywhere here in the West, is the balance of seva and simran, like meditation and service. And I was coming up for me very strongly today because um, I'm one of Alethea's only partners to actually help with the horses, and for the work around the ranch and with the horses to be fully embraced and celebrated. And she always wants to apologize to me. I'm sorry you have to do this. Can you do? And I'm like, no, this is an amazing gift to be serving these majestic beings. And I I got back from I went to this really crazy music convention in LA and Anaheim a couple of days ago called NAMM. And if you know anything about music or music technology, everybody it's like one of the biggest things. In the previous years, I met Stevie Wonder. I got hooked up with Ludacris's producer. I mean, it's like it was everybody crossed paths there, and it's just total madness. There's all these instruments being played and all these sounds, and it's like both beautiful and chaotic at the same time. And I got back from LA, and I the first thing I did in the morning was scoop the poop from the horses, and I was just so overwhelmed with gratitude for this dung, because I could literally feel it like balancing my ionosphere. Like I could feel the ions that were chaotic and out of coherence, like from being in LA, from being in this convention, and having the grounding ions of the earth and the dung. I could feel my whole energy field being completely rearranged. Even though I wasn't barefoot, like I wasn't like, but I could still feel by being in that environment, my energy completely shifted in about 10 minutes. And that's something that's completely recognized and is part of Indian lifestyle, is the balance of meditation, the ecstatic sort of inner journeying, and all of those things you could say, like the fruits of life, and the notion of serving the divines, and having that sort of fluid exchange between the ethereal and the physical. And one of my favorite sevas out of all, like by far, in India, is going to the temples. They, especially in the Sikh temples, you leave your shoes outside, and there's these shelves, these places where you take the shoes, and going and cleaning the shoes of all of the people who go to the temple. So you take each shoe, you put it to your forehead in gratitude, and then you clean it. So when they come back, their shoes are cleaner than before. And the variety of shoes that are there, from these shoes that probably cost about 50 cents, that are made out of rubber and have probably been used for 10 years and are just falling apart at the seams, to people who are on, wealthier classes and whatever, who are, handmade leather shoes, and just going to each one and holding them and sitting in the experience, just taking the vibrational experience of being at the feet of all these people and cleaning them is like it brings me to tears. It's kind of the opposite level of it's kind of like it's so beautiful. And so that's my coming back from India. I think that's one of the things that I am most grateful for, is the experience of both of the relationship of Seva and Simran.
And to be clear, say, and I agree 100%. And I've done the sweeping floors at the Golden Temple, and I can feel the bliss, and I know exactly what you're talking about. But I just wanted to say, Seva means service, Simran means prayer. So I was just kind of, because I don't think you said those definitions,
Yeah,
but
yeah. So yeah, Seva is this, but I think I relate it to also, like, in relationship, we don't understand the value of doing things for people, of like doing work for people, cooking, cleaning, all of that stuff. How that, oftentimes that's considered to be like lower, or work, or something that's you don't want to be doing, and that it's like a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice. It's a great gift. And
well, I vote
and
that
I,
we do a
experiencing
weekend
that,
over there.
experiencing that in my relationship with Alethea. Like, to me, she is the goddess, and I get to serve her and serve. I mean, if I was in the presence of the divine, if I was in the presence of God herself, what would I do? I would serve her. Like, I would do everything I could to clean for her, to cook for her, do all of this stuff, and to be in a relationship where we have that kind of mutual love and respect for each other. And I think it's a complete opposite of what Western culture really thinks, where those things are work. We have to be getting away from that, and really, it's the way of expressing love on a different level.
Mm,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Beautiful, Subhraag. I'm gonna go, but I don't want you to end the conversation.
No, I
So
have to
please.
go too.
Oh no.
It's
Well,
okay.
I
It's
think
perfect. It's
um
perfect.
we should go. We should all go to the horse ranch and scoop poop. That's sounds
Yes.
actually really nice.
Sounds great. It sounds
Yeah.
great.
I'll be
I'll
back
cook
in.
wood fired pizza for you all. I'll cook wood fired. I had some friends come from London the other a couple weeks ago, and I cooked them wood fired pizza, and I did a underground magic show in a horse trailer. We made an underground magic theater, and had, candles and crystals, and made it really nice. So we should do a QA magic of pizza night.
Love it.
Here.
100%. I'm in.
I'm in.
I'll be back in America in March, so maybe around then.
That'd be great.
So fun. Oh, well, happy trails, Scott. Thank
Thank you,
you
guys.
for your time.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Hilde. This is amazing as always.
Thank you, Subhraag. Love you guys.
Bye.